We're here in central New York in front of the 1890 house, former home of Chester Wickwire, which, as everybody knows, he created the screen.
Like the screen on a screen door, like that kind of like wire meshing.
Yeah, he did some fencing as well.
I don't know, that's crazy. Yeah. But here in Cortland, there's a brewery that we have to check out. We're gonna find out what's on tap at Cortland Beer Company.
Across the nation, people have turned the hobby of crafting beer into a lifestyle. Amazing breweries are only a few minutes away from your own home.
From nano to regional or micro to macro, the question you won't need to ask is what's on tap.
Cortland Beer Company opened up about a decade ago, but recently they underwent some management changes.
Yeah, that didn't stop these guys from producing some awesome beer, and it just keeps getting better. We gotta go check it out.
Let's do it.
Cortland Beer Company. John, from what I know, you bought it recently, but how did you come across Cortland Beer Company here and be like, I gotta get this?
Cortland Beer Company has been here for about 11 years. I was a customer before I was an owner, and my family and I always enjoyed coming to Cortland Beer on a Friday night. Some good beer, some good drinks, some live music, some good company. It was actually almost 2 years ago that I learned that the business was for sale. And my interest in brewing and distilling and fermenting kind of piqued the thought of, maybe I should look at this. Then above and beyond that, I kind of realized that Cortland Beer Company had kind of become part of the community here. It was something that, a lot of people had grown accustomed to frequenting. It's kind of like a second home for a lot of people in the community. So, although we had challenges, the state doesn't work quickly, the federal government doesn't work quickly. In the middle of it, we developed a pandemic. So we kind of been bobbing and weaving and dodging bullets to make it happen. But although a lot of people thought I was crazy for pursuing the deal in the middle of a pandemic, I'm a rather persistent guy, so we decided, we were moving forward, and ultimately we got the thumbs up from all the approvals and various entities involved to move forward, and we wound up closing beginning of June of this year. We were a little nervous about acquiring the company in the middle of a pandemic. But honestly, we've done well with it. It's been more challenging, but we've also been very successful with it. We've got a lot of terrific employees. Our product is great. Our location is fabulous. We've revamped a lot of the facility to accommodate COVID and to accommodate a different approach to business. And on any given night, we run out of chairs. So it's not a bad problem to have.
This is downtown Cortland, right? I'm not from here, so I'm just trying to, I feel like it's a perfect spot to just come right to.
Small town feel in like somewhere that somebody driving by or walking by just sees this and decides to stop in and check it out. It's a perfect spot.
We're about 50 feet off the main intersection of downtown Cortland. We're surrounded by historic buildings. It's walking distance for a lot of people. It's amazing how many of our customers live downtown, and whether it be students or retirees that come in on their daily walk and have a few cocktails while they're on their daily walk, it's all good. It's got a good community feel.
Taylor, kind of similar thing. When did you become involved with Cortland, and how did you become involved?
I think it was around 2015. I replied to a Craigslist ad here for dishwashing and keg washing. And I had worked in the industry since 2013 at a winery, doing everything there from pound and post to cellaring the wine. And as I got older, I realized I liked beer more than wine, so I decided to look for what I could in the beer industry, and I found a part-time job to work at the Finger Lakes Beverage Center, which is the biggest beer store in Ithaca, and I learned a lot about just different styles of beer and what you could actually look forward to doing, and from there I found my way here, and it was just a process of learning at that point. I mean, when I started here, I had never tapped a keg, and worked my way up to a head brewer, head distiller position, just kind of learning every little thing along the way, from fixing pumps to fans to sourcing your raw materials.
That's a climb.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and along the way, it was, it's nice to have things. I took different schooling, different courses with Cornell, with the Certified Cicerone program, to just kind of further my knowledge in that and to give myself a base to build off of.
Huge transition in just a couple years. And I mean, you guys got plenty. Of course, I grabbed the light beer, but I wanted to go light beer while we're out here. But I mean, even what you're drinking, the stout, I mean, you got a lot of different beers here. How are you coming up with all these different beers you got?
As far as coming up with ideas, I really look to having beers with other friends. I just recently took a trip to Cape May, and while I was there, it's kind of my thing just to do R&D and go to the different breweries and see what I can find. And like I mentioned with the Finger Lakes Beverage Center in Ithaca, they have a huge catalog. I mean, they get beers from Europe, from Canada, from Mexico, so I always get to try something new. We just recently made a beer that we call the Wolverine IPA. It's made with a gulo yeast, which is a Mexican yeast that I discovered through just trying beers at the beer store. So.
What about like New York State ingredients? Are you guys using a lot of New York State stuff, or are you also sourcing from other places? I mean, you mentioned other countries. I mean, what is it that where are you getting everything?
Well, right now we get more than 60% of our ingredients from New York State, just because that's the way it has to be as a farm brewery. But we try and, source what we can, because if you got a good price on hops, we'll buy your hops. So recently we've been buying a lot of New York Cascade just because they're beating out, Washington's Cascade. So we're going to help them out, we're going to buy them, but we really like to source as much as we can. So we get stuff from Hector, we get stuff from Cazenovia. We just recently took a trip to Willett Hop Farms in Willett, New York, and picked fresh hops that day and came back and brewed a beer with it that afternoon.
Right away? Wet hops?
Wow.
It was delicious. The wet hop, the ability to taste the freshness from...
That's really what it is.
I describe it as grass mowed that day, not the next day. You know the difference when I say that,
Absolutely. I'm curious too, because you were drinking a Bloody Mary. We have all these beers going on, and this is a first for us, we're at a brewery that is also a distillery as well. Now, was that something that was here before you got here, John, or was this something that you implemented?
No, the distillery was here before. It was solely a farm brewery for quite a few years, and several years ago it became a distillery. We've added product line to the distillery. I happen to be a large fan of bourbon. CBC hadn't produced bourbon in the past, so one of the first things that I asked Taylor to figure out was how to get some barrels full of bourbon, and we did. So
as soon as possible. That was. How's that bourbon
when the
coming
boss
along?
is
How's that
asking, you
bourbon
better
coming
get that going. Yeah.
And one of the things, not only with the brewery but with the distillery, we're always looking at new and different ways, new and different types of beers, of spirits, and different blends. The combination of having the brewery and distillery on site allows us to come up with a lot of different opportunities to make different types of spirits. And as Taylor develops more knowledge from all the schooling that he's pursuing on both brewing and distilling, he constantly comes up with new opportunities.
They're just so different, but they're all so well done.
Right.
And that's got to be difficult to continue to try and come up with these different beers. How often are you coming up with new beers here?
I would say probably 3 or 4 every week, and maybe 1 or 2 of them are worth it to continue making. But it also comes from cooking. I love to cook. I cook for my family, and before I got into beer when I was like 16, 17, I thought I was going to go to Paul Smith's culinary school. So I've always had a background in flavors and creating things, really. So that's kind of where that comes from. It's just a desire to see something new and see something special.
CBC here. I mean, you guys have been around for a couple years, and John recently taking it over. What do you think? Are you already looking ahead to the future?
We got a lot of plans for the future, a lot of big plans for the future, and I mean, a lot of that is the reason that, you know, Taylor is acquiring certifications and education. We're planning to add winery to our list of licenses and products. We intend to add additional locations. The other thing that we're pursuing right now is a significantly larger wholesale network. We do an incredible retail business. The community and the students are tremendously supportive, and we do a great retail business. But our retail business is limited by the capacity that we have. The wholesale end of the business is pretty much limitless. As large a distribution network as we can create, we can expand the size of the business and the product line. I think over time and over better times, I think that you'll see CBC becoming a regional player in the brewery and the distillery business and maybe in the winery business someday.
Well, talked a lot. I think go check out the brewery now, right?
Let's do it.
Now we're in the brewery, brewhouse here. Ben joining us, assistant brewer. Yeah, you know, tell us, you know, what kind of system you got here?
Well, right now we're running on a 25 barrel brew system. We usually do double barrel brew days or double batch brew days if we can help it. So that way we don't have to clean things, we can just dough in twice. This is our mash tun right over here. As you can see, we got set up for a brew day later this week. We got our tote of grain. We usually just lift it right up with the forklift, cut a hole in the bottom. We mix everything by hand here. We're as large as you can be and still do it by hand. So we do, you know, 25 barrels all by hand. It's all Ben's hard work and sweat, mixing that grain up. Right there, we dough in everything over here. We got our brew kettle in the back.
Right around the corner here. Yep.
That's our 25 barrel brew kettle, and we'll also, in a pinch, when our distillery is running really hot, we can turn that into a still as well, and we'll get, you know, about 60 gallons an hour of, you know, certain proof alcohol out of that baby. So it'll really run. As far as this week, right now, we've got a red ale brew day planned. We've got a Lulo and tangerine sour IPA fermenting. And we're working on our Halloween beers. We got a sour IPA, a chocolate pudding caramel graham cracker crust stout.
That sounds awesome.
So that's one of the ones we've got going on right now.
The stuff you can do with beer, guys. The stuff you can do with beer. And Ben, get you in on here. So a little bit about you. You know, how long have you been here, and you know, how'd you get into brewing?
Well, you know, I've been here for about 3 years now, and I've always had a light interest in brewing. It's always been really fascinating to me being able to turn grains and hops into some delicious golden concoction that I can drink with my friends and just have an amazing time with. And then, you know, Taylor had come over to my place one day and just, you know, he'd been doing all this by himself for a few years at that point, and he's like, man, I really need some help. And I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to help you. I can step in and be that, and I can come in. So I came in, and you know, he showed me the ropes, showed me all the sort of the basics of it, everything from, you know, loading in the mash, getting all the hot water at the right temperature to get the enzymatic processes going right, moving it over to the kettle, getting all the hops in there, getting all those good extra flavors, and then making sure it's into the tank and that everything is set to go. So pretty much from start to finish, you know, I really cut my teeth on here thanks to Taylor's help.
Yeah, one of the things with our brew system that differentiates with a lot of other people I've visited is we are not high piped anywhere. All of our tanks are separate. We do everything with like loose hoses. So it's a lot of hands-on, attaching, disconnecting, moving this hose from this place, making sure this hose is been cleaned properly. And it's a lot more of a process than you would realize, because every hose has to have a special set of procedures happen before it touches anything. So for Ben to learn that in a few years is pretty impressive for anybody, because most brewers learn a hard pipe system where it's just turn this switch, it'll flow through this pipe. You don't have to touch anything. Here, everything is extremely hands-on, like I was saying, you know. We're as large as you can be and still stir the grain by hand.
So when it comes to your specialty beers, like, for example, this Halloween beer, how long can people expect for you to have something like that? Is it going to go pretty quick?
Oh, it'll go very quick, yeah. with the specialty beers we do at the bar, you can expect it to be there for 5 to 7 days. Wow. And
sorry,
I'm
guys,
talking.
you already missed out.
Gone, but
You know, if you're not here by Halloween, it'll be gone.
everything sounds really good, but you guys have a lot of awesome beers on tap that I'm ready to try.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, we got lucky before we tried a couple. I think it's time for us.
Let's pour four. Pour four. All right,
Plus
guys.
one.
Pour five today. We always like that, guys. Thank you. Where are we starting here? Where do you want to start?
All right, so first off, we've got the Nitrogen Pumpkin Ale. So that's our house pumpkin made with 130 pounds of pumpkin per batch. We also use fresh spices, clove, nutmeg, cinnamon, whole vanilla beans, you know, none of that fake shit. Pardon my language.
No, you can't.
You can say it.
Yeah, so that's our house pumpkin, and then we took it, and instead of carbonating it with regular old CO2, we nitrogened it. It gives it that really nice, creamy, sweeter profile. You really get to taste that vanilla and that pumpkin. You know, it's a well-rounded nitrogen beer.
Yeah, and what I love about nitrogen beers is it makes for such a smoother finish.
Yes.
When you're drinking it, and like
You
said,
feel it all over the mouth.
It's
Yeah.
a great mouth.
Very soft on the tongue and the mouth.
It takes that cinnamon burn and just turns it into more of just cinnamon flavor.
Well, that's the thing, and the flavors in this they're all over the place. Like you've got a little bit of everything. It tastes, you get a genuine pumpkin taste, but like you said, the vanilla there at the end, that's very nice and soft, and it is super, super smooth and yet rich at the same time.
It almost has a wine characteristic.
It's a good way to
the way
put it,
that
yeah.
it feels on your mouth.
And like I said, we use a lot of pumpkin in that. You know, and that, like you're saying, it's really, you taste the pumpkin. It's not pumpkin spice beer, it's a pumpkin beer.
Pumpkin.
I was saying, this tastes like pumpkin to
Yeah.
me, and it's exactly the kind of pumpkin you're looking for. But with all those different flavors that you're getting with it too, with that vanilla, it all complements it like so well. And that nitro, it makes for less carbonation, really goes down nicely.
Yeah,
You know, you're
it's not
drinking this.
sitting there. You're not
No,
feeling it
yeah.
afterwards.
Okay, so for our next one, we have the Sea Salt Caramel Stout. And this beer was kind of a labor of love, really, because we took a lot of different kinds of caramel and different kinds of salt to figure this one out. But eventually we were able to dial it in to give you that complement of roasted malt with caramel flavor, and then that bite of salt ting at the end. Because you want that salt at the end.
Yeah.
You don't want it up front.
That's what you get with salted caramel too. I mean, I love caramel. Like that was like
It's
one of my
great.
first real like loves growing up. It's like everybody likes chocolate. I'm like, I like
Caramel.
caramel. Look at
That's
that
the
taste.
move.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, when you're getting ice cream, there's either the caramel or chocolate, and I would always go caramel. And I love this in a stout, and it's really what I like about caramel is I always think about, you know, when you warm it up too for a hot caramel. And a stout is always a warming kind of beer for me, and the way it feels, the way it goes down. And this is awesome.
You know, and usually caramels, they don't mix well in beer. It destroys all of your head, all of your carbonation, you know, so it's really kind of a trick to find that balance of enough caramel for flavor and keeping your carbonation.
All right, all this talk about the salted caramel, I gotta go pour one. I
don't
need
blame
one.
you.
Yeah, I mean, I already had, during our talk earlier, I had the full glass of it. This has already become my favorite beer that I've tried here, and it's not even close. Not that any of the others are bad, but this is just so friggin' good.
Thank you, yeah.
And same thing
Why
with you.
don't
like,
we go for it?
I know, really. Like,
Just say
same thing. Like, I love caramel. I do caramel iced coffee all year round. That's my go-to. I friggin' love it.
Well, I'm a Snickers guy.
Okay, so this is right up your alley. I've never even heard of, let alone tried, a salted caramel stout like this.
Going to the middle of the flight board.
All right, our next one, this is our Gulo, or Wolverine IPA, as we call it. This beer kind of originated because I was looking at tequilas, like how to make different kinds of tequila, how you label tequila, and they were talking about the different styles of yeast they use to make tequila. And there was all these cool names, and I saw this one yeast called Gulo. I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I looked it up, and it actually has really cool properties for beer. So I ordered some, and we just decided to make a little experimental IPA out of it. And it's really a traditional West Coast kind of IPA made with a Mexican yeast, which is very interesting. You know, it's got a lot of that piney, resinous flavor, but also that really bittery ending maltiness to it that you expect from a West Coast.
That's what I think about when I'm looking for a West Coast IPA. I'm wanting that bitter at the end, and it really has a nice sweetness to it. And I say that a lot.
It's true though. That's what it is. Yeah.
Well, I feel like a lot of people don't realize the balance of sweetness and tartness in beer, or tartness and bitterness, depends on how you want to taste it.
Yeah.
But that's literally the two things you're balancing on a palate, you know, because there's all the taste, there's umami, there's salt, there's sweet, but it's really just sweet and salt.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're going for.
I'm gonna keep my review short and simple. Wolverine is a badass superhero. This is a badass beer. They both cut up, slicing. This slices up perfectly. You have your bitter, you have your sweet, balances up perfectly. This is awesome. This is kick-ass.
All right, so this one is our craftiest of craft beers. This is our wet hop, double dry hopped IPA. So this is a beer that was kind of a labor of love for mine. I've been wanting to do for years that we weren't really allowed to do. And then thanks, when John came on, he's like, you know, you want to do that? Go ahead and try it. We'll work it out. So
Do it.
we contacted a hop farm close to us, one with a really good reputation that we know as top quality hops. Really, they do Michigan Copper, Cascade. They do experimental variations from colleges there, and we got a hold of them and pretty much planned out our brew day to go ahead as we're gonna brew this week because he said he's gonna harvest within this 7-day window. So we're gonna have everything ready to brew, and we went down to the farm and followed the tractor along the row and picked out our hops and brought them right back to the brewery and brewed this beer with them. And as you can tell, it's just got this amazing fresh hop flavor, like I would describe as fresh cut grass that day, not the day after, or even like a wet tobacco leaf. When you know people are making you a cigar, you can smell that wet tobacco, and it's that kind of flavor. It's not overpowering. It's still a lot of citrus, a lot of pine resin you get, but you get that overbearing freshness that really complements that sweet. We use a lot of oats, a lot of wheat in that body to kind of bolster that sweetness, to give it that background against all that wet hop flavor. So it really balances out well.
A wet hop makes out for a really fresh tasting beer, and it's just something that it really is, you're not getting that often because it ends up being like almost like a fall beer.
Yeah, you have to do it at a certain time. It feels like, yeah.
And it just, I like wet hop beers. I love them. I've been having them more, and it's. I'm glad I get to try them where these places I've been going.
Now that we've been introduced to this process and the taste and the result that you get, and it's kind of funny to think about, you know, like you say, you're following along this track, you're trying to make sure you get the freshest possible hops, and then it's almost immediate. You're bringing it right back here, getting it in there, getting things going, and the end result is just, it's a different level
The
of IPA.
drinkability.
Yep.
The drinkability is amazing in that beer because the freshness of the wet hops, it's almost like on a hot day, you know, when you're thirsty and you grab a beer, that's what that wet hop reminds me of, because it's just got that feel that you know, it's hard to sift.
All right, so this is our latest beer that we just came out with today, actually. This is the Mango Pineapple Strawberry Sour New England IPA. We have not even come up with a name.
No name on it, yeah.
There's no name for it yet. That's literally just what it is. This has kind of been something we've been experimenting with. I had a beer from Welderworks, Hydra's Lament, and you know, huge shout out to those guys. They're doing some amazing things with fruit. And that's kind of where I got this from. Is I wanted a beer that you could see the pulp in your glass as you were drinking it. Like, you know, it's like biting into a piece of overly ripe tropical fruit. And that's what you're getting with this beer.
I've never had anything like this.
No.
Absolutely, never had anything like this.
Genuinely unique.
Another one we did cheat on. This is the last one we cheated on. I would say is we had
3 out of 5.
When we came in.
You guys did a lot of cheating today.
did.
I have to say.
A lot.
To taste it
It's a
before
good
we got
thing.
started.
It's a good thing.
This one is, I've never had anything like this. And a lot of the what I'm seeing in all these craft beer groups I'm in on Facebook, whether it's the Syracuse group, Binghamton group, the craft beer community that's literally got 30,000 members in it. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of these beers that have, you know, they actually have the pulp in it, or like the slushies are doing all these different things that we haven't had yet, and you don't even expect that, and it's got that pulp in there, and I'm just drinking it like nothing. Like I don't drink orange juice, but the one thing that turned me off from orange juice was Pulp orange juice. Yeah.
It's almost like this is less bitter than orange juice because of the beer.
Yep, it's
very
less
naturally
acidic.
sour,
That's
too.
for sure. Yeah. No, but it has the consistency almost of an orange juice, and the look, like you said, you can look around your glass, around these glasses, you see the remnants of it, and that's pretty cool. Like you don't get that in next to any other beer unless you're, like sometimes you get it with a stout, something like that, but not pulpy,
Right.
like that.
Chunks of fruit you can see on your glass.
Yeah, even when you poured it for us earlier, you barely set it down on the counter 5 feet away from me. I'm smelling it through my mask.
Yes.
It's just very potent, but it's also the flavors blend together in such a way that it's not overwhelmingly bitter or sour. It's a really, really good balance.
Thank you so much. What an unbelievable beers here.
Thank you.
Unbelievable place you got here, and I'm glad that we finally were able to come. And
Pleasure having you guys.
Looking forward to making the trip back up.
Thank you so much.
So I picked this place up when they first, I think they've opened 10+ years. Yeah, about 10 years back. I got a couple things for them. This guy works locally and got me back in the area to enjoy them.
I love coming here for the live music and, you know, being outside in good weather. It's awesome.
The salted caramel one, that was pretty good too. I was scared of it first because it was a little dark.
No,
and
so dark.
I
I
don't like the stronger ones. We smelled it and we were like, oh, it smells like salted caramel. Like it was pretty
It smelled
good.
good, and it was
It
good.
had a sweet taste to it.
So right now, I mean, especially for places that are, looking to get CBC on tap somewhere, whether it's a restaurant or even just somebody wanting to come get themselves a keg or pick up beer, distributing wise. How does somebody get a hold of you guys, and how does somebody put that together?
For folks looking for our product, you can find it in a lot of local and regional grocery stores, convenience stores, etc. If someone is looking for wholesale distribution, they could call the brewery, and we have a group that handles wholesale and will take care of that.
So that wraps up our day here at Cortland Beer Company. Can't thank Taylor, John, Ben, everyone here enough for this awesome day. We got some beer crock hot dogs. Loving them. I mean, who doesn't like a hot dog? It's easy. It's an easy meal. One of my favorite meals. Love it.
Yep, help absorb that alcohol a little bit. We have quite a few beers here, and they're all so different, so unique. Really, it's been an amazing day. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere you can, so you can see where our journey takes us next on What's on Tap.
Cheers.
Hey.